At Mayo Clinic in Florida, we are predicting the unpredictable. Our experts are using a patient's own anatomy to create 3D printed, life-size organ models to map out challenges ahead of time, making complex surgeries more precise, efficient, and less invasive. We are making more possible at Mayo Clinic because every day we're doing what's never been done. Learn more at mayoclinic.org/possible. Mayo Clinic. You know where to go.
Emmy award-winning John Mulaney presents Everybody's in L.A., a special run of 6 live episodes created by and starring Mulaney that'll stream live on Netflix during the Netflix is a Joke Fest. The comically unconventional show will feature special guests where John Mulaney explores the city of Los Angeles during a week when every funny person is in it. Watch John Mulaney Presents Everybody's in L.A., debuting May 3rd live at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix.
For exclusive podcasts and more, sign up at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, who's responsible for the murder of 2 Texas teens? Drug dealers, the cops, or the local satanic cult? We'll explore the cold case in Shane and Sally from the Texas Monthly. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, what is coming up on Thursday's show? This is obviously Monday's podcast.
Yeah, on Thursday, we will reconvene and talk about the Netflix thriller series Ripley.
Oh, that's going to be a fun conversation, don't you think?
I hope so.
So before we start the show, I just want to tell you guys, sometimes I do take a peek at the reviews of our podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I just want to alert you to another very good faith reviewer.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not looking.
This is from
God.
Rudolph Hot Dog Burger, who says, anything Rebecca is involved in is trash. Don't waste your time. 1 star.
Damn.
1 star. And then what is the title of this review?
Stupid. That's
yeah.
from a year ago.
I know.
Oh, I thought that might have been from the shrimp restaurant episode feedback blowback. But
No, it actually wasn't. It actually wasn't.
No. Laura, you've got something coming up you want to share.
Yeah, so I am going to be a guest on Simone Paget's podcast, her dating and relationship podcast. We're not doing this again. Simone is a friend of our show. She's the sex and relationship columnist for the Toronto Sun. We love Simone, and she and I had a really fun chat this week. We talked about the online dating apps, dating in your 40s, and then we played a really fun game called Fuck, Murder, Kill. Fuck, marry, kill. Oh my God.
I was going to say, that's not how that game usually goes.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I have murder on the brain. But we changed it to Fuck, Marry, Banish because we wanted to be like pacifists. So
okay.
That will be coming out. Keep your eyes open. And it was so much fun to chat with Simone.
Oh, nice. All right. Fuck,
Did
Mary,
you talk
Banish.
about all the professional Santa Clauses that you keep matching with on the apps for some reason?
We tried to get to the bottom of the Santa phenomenon and whether it was just unique to me, whether there were people out there with Santa fetishes, like what is going on with the Santas?
Well, if you don't have a Santa fetish, then they're feeding you the wrong stuff.
That's right.
Clearly, the algorithm is off.
It is. Thanks, Elon.
Okay, well, we've got a Texas Monthly podcast to talk about, and those are always very interesting, so I'd like to get to it. What do you think, Kevin?
All right.
All right, let's do that. Leading off, let's drop that first clip right now.
By a lake northwest of town, a park ranger found Shane's burnt orange Camaro, abandoned. Officers guessed that Shane and Sally had run off together, but Marshall didn't believe it. Marshall was convinced that something awful had happened to them.
In 1988, 3 months after going missing from a lake in San Angelo, Texas, the bodies of teenagers Shane Stewart and Sally McNelly were discovered. The pair had been shot. Among those in their friend group were a collection of self-styled occultists, and evidence of satanic rituals were found near the park where they vanished.
And just over the fence inside there is where they had drawn their satanic circle. And they'd had their fire, and they had their glass and their other things that they use in some of the rituals. He says, "Oh my gosh, that looks like a ritual site." I said, "That's exactly what that is."
Evidence suggests there was more than one killer, and rumors of a falling out between the victims and members of the cult interested investigators. Other possibilities included a drug debt, a random robbery, or police perpetrators and a cover-up. Decades after the murders, new clues keep emerging, but detectives seem no closer to solving this cold case.
So where does that leave us after all we've learned about this case? Solving this case will either take powerful new testimony from credible witnesses or some piece of physical evidence that ties the suspect to the murder.
From Texas Monthly True Crime comes Shane and Sally. Hosts Rob D'Amico and Karen Jacobs take a fresh look at the prominent unsolved mystery. They track down past suspects and seek a motive for the killing of the teenagers. Did they really double-cross a drug dealer, provoke a satanic cult, or were they the latest victims of a stick-up gang prowling the lake? Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Shane and Sally, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Toby, San Angelo, the town in Texas where this takes place, is a major character in this podcast, is it not?
It is, and I think that's like really the strength of the podcast. I don't feel as though the San Angelo Tourist Board probably endorses this podcast, because what you get out of this is pretty bleak, at least back in the mid and late 80s.
I mean, they're not having pagan holidays? They should
pagan
be,
holidays,
right?
yeah. Like when you've got 3 satanic sects plus possibly the entire like town leadership involved in one. No, I think we'll probably talk about the possible shortcomings of the podcast in a bit, but I just thought that the portrait of San Angelo at this time was really pretty powerful, and it paints a picture of an environment in which sort of these violent kinds of things can happen. And there's such a variety of possibilities to what happened to these 2 teenagers. I think that, what are they, 15 and 17 or 16 and 18 or something like that?
Yeah, they're really young, yeah.
Yeah, this goes through 5 different possible suspects or scenarios that could have led to their deaths, which is crazy. You know, these are high school age kids. You know, I think Texas Monthly up until this point, just based on how good their crime journalism is in print, I've always found the podcast to be a little disappointing. That wasn't the case with this one. I think this one, they finally kind of figured it out. And I think a large part of that is just the portrayal of the town in which all this stuff took place.
It's a portrayal of the town, but also this podcast, frankly, just to me sounds a lot better than other podcasts they've made, which has really helped. The production is really good. The scoring of this podcast, the original music was great. The 2-host format super worked. They made it very, very transparent and clear that this was going to be a film project that kind of got canned. And so they used some of that reporting in here too. So it had sort of more of a robust sort of undergirding, I think, than some of their other podcasts have had. So Laura, this podcast begins with Marshall, right? This is one of the victims' fathers. Can you talk about like the journey that we take with him in the show?
Yeah, I mean, we begin with a route talk.
We come around the lake just like we did right now, and he came in here. And this road's always been like this. It's never been a smooth, flat, get in and out road. So if you want to come in here, you got to want to come in here.
There's not really a resolution in this podcast. And so at the end, I'm like, this is really Marshall's journey, and Marshall's journey to find out what happened to his son and what happened to his son's girlfriend. And right off the bat, Marshall just begins his own investigation. He spends all evening driving all around San Angelo, looking for him. The next morning, he's out driving. Somebody finds Shane's burnt orange Camaro, not just orange, burnt orange Camaro.
Wait a minute. You mean that was the color? It wasn't literally burnt?
No, it was the color of the car.
God fucking damn it! I thought the clues they burnt the car.
No, the car was burnt orange.
Fucking hell!
Burnt orange.
Oh God!
It's University of Texas. The Longhorns are burnt orange.
Yeah, it was. So I loved that detail.
But so Kevin,
I gotta say, it was macaroni and cheese orange. Why couldn't they say that?
Kraft Mac orange.
Yes.
God fucking damn it. All right, sorry. I'm the one who thought the murder mystery in Great Britain was they had like 50 pounds worth of cocaine, and I thought that meant 50 pounds, not 50 British sterling pounds.
Oh gosh,
I'm the idiot.
So I should look for your note about the burnt car and cross it out. Then is what I'm saying.
But Marshall continues. At one point, he sees a truck that matches a description of a truck. He chases the truck. He's on this like 100-mile-per-hour high-speed chase, but then he finds a freaking body. He's out searching around the lake and he smells something, and there is a body. And it's not his son's and it's not Sally's. They say it's like a drug deal gone bad or something. But I'm like, where are the police in all of this?
This place is bleak, Laura. This place is very bleak.
This is so fucked that this father is the one that's having to do all of this legwork. He's finding evidence and he's finding bodies like Columbo or something, you know?
I'll tell you one last thing I want to say about sort of the undercurrent that to sort of start with like the specter of climate change and its effects on these scenes, that the lake is disappearing and like turning up these secrets is also just so evocative of sort of like what's going on in so many parts of America right now because of like how the time has passed since then and what we have done to ourselves. And to me, that was such a great element to include, like how the shore has moved so far away from where it used to be and how things look so different than they used to be. I just thought that was really well written. So Kevin, I see from your notes, you like me thought there was a satanic panic thing going on in this podcast.
It took me a couple of times going through this to stop rolling my eyes about a satanic cult, because we have done a couple of these podcast episodes where we know the satanic panic issue is just blown out of proportion, and a lot of times it's just kids playing Dungeons and Dragons. But, you finally get to the fact that this was legitimately a bunch of people who were
having rituals in the woods and killing animals and doing horrible satanic, like I'm not saying satanic things are horrible.
Right, yeah, I mean,
but they were hurting animals, right?
Right. I mean, as long as you sort of believe there isn't anything supernatural happening, like they haven't really summoned the devil and all that. It's clear that the adults were not just freaking out that it's a bunch of goth kids who listen to heavy metal music. They definitely seem to be troubled teens who adopted the trappings of satanic cults and acted out that shit, and they're doing the things they thought they were supposed to do if you're in a satanic cult.
It was pretty make your hair stand up on the back of your neck type of deal, satanic-wise. There was a lot of satanic items that were in the house and pentagrams. We actually took a police chaplain with us when we went in and had him bless the house before we went in.
They weren't possessed by the devil, but they did appear to be troubled people, because later in life, you had one that was in a murder-suicide pact. You had one who drank himself to death. It doesn't sound like these were like honor students who got mixed up. And so it sounded like these were probably at-risk kids who somehow gravitated to that scene. But I mean, there's evidence that they were harming animals and doing pentagrams and shit like that. And while that's usually just graffiti, for these guys, that was an interest of theirs.
What I actually heard was that there was evidence that one person was like harming a lot of animals, and that maybe he was the center of one of these.
Was it the dude with the black walls painted in the house?
Yeah, that the other aunt says, no, that's bullshit.
No,
but
I never saw that.
Yeah, but like, that perhaps there is this one, really awful person and that people sort of like congregated around. But Toby... Yeah. I mean, we always hear this stuff of like, oh, kids are gathering in the woods and they're building fires. But it seems like there's more to it than just Dungeons and Dragons going on in this town. I mean, you had a club called the Lost Boys where everybody was dressed up like vampires going on, quote, patrol. And now later the story is like, oh, we were doing good deeds. Like we were like the guardian angels in the subway. That's not what they were, right? I mean, it is interesting that this is the alt scene that developed in this town. I mean, we heard there was a sex trafficking situation going on with like little kids. I mean, this town is bleak, Toby. And I like Kevin, rolled my eyes at the satanic stuff until I kind of heard more about what this town was kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 80s is prime satanic panic time. And while, this idea that there was all these satanic cults that were sacrificing babies and stuff is obviously BS, it does kind of provide a framework for like teen rebellion, right? Like that's a possible outlet, is to sort of cosplay Satanism, or even go beyond cosplaying in that, like this guy Steve apparently torturing and killing animals, right? And then they have like a clubhouse where they meet, and it's kind of spooky and things like that. So the whole Lost Boys thing is weird, and I think I missed the details on this, but apparently there was an adult who was involved in this as well, who's talking about being, I mean, that's just, it's super bizarre. I mean, the level of sort of mistrust throughout the town too, I think is a thing where even police think other police might be involved in these murders or satanic cults. Like people bring up the fact that the town is run by Satanists as sort of a, it's just like, it's like this run by Republicans or Democrats. It's
like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
The Hellmouth.
I haven't seen Buffy.
It's another after show topic.
I'm not watching all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I can talk about it for 20 minutes. So at the beginning, I guess I was thinking a little bit in terms of like being in high school, and you'd hear these rumors about things that happened, or people are like, in my high school, there were some kids who, I don't know if they owned it or they just hung out in like this like farmhouse, and it was like where a lot of parties happened and stuff happened. You just hear rumors about what had happened there. And I thought maybe that's kind of what's going on here, is that some sort of outcast kids, or sort of these rumors grow, and over time it becomes this big thing. But in fact, that's not really the case. Like there's actually some substance behind it. And because it kind of comes in the guise of Satanism, it freaks people out even more. So they bring like a priest when they're searching this house.
So I'm just keeping score here. Okay, we've got at least one satanic cult, maybe a rival cult. We've got a group of vampires that fashion themselves after the Lost Boy movies.
Yes.
All we need is like the town elders to ban the prom and Kevin Bacon holding one in the grist mill. The fuck with this actual Texas town.
There's some weird energy or juju in that town. Like, what is it in that town, in that community, that's driving people to be involved in all these activities?
I don't know.
Satan?
I mean, we hear a lot about towns where there's like poverty and where there's not a lot to do, and where there's like a lot of, blight and all that stuff.
Yeah, but listen, like I grew up in a town. I had no electricity.
Yeah.
I had a gas station with a soda machine with 4 flavors. And I wasn't in a cult.
Yeah. Well,
yet.
4 flavors of soda,
okay, but
0 devils.
The thing that's wild to me, Laura, is we hear from a woman as a grown-up who takes them on the journey back to the house where a man, who we also heard from in the podcast, he's a grown man now, he says he's a preacher now, who he admits did some, quote, bad things when he was younger, apparently kept her and sex trafficked her when she was like 12 and 13 years old with a bunch of other girls, kidnapped her, kept her in a trailer, and when the police came and searched it, like hid her under a bed.
You all right? Yeah. Whoa, what came back all of a sudden? That brown one right there. God, it looks like the same one. Certainly it's not the same trailer. God, it looks just like it. I think it is, y'all.
And then when she got out, the cops did nothing except send her to some therapy situation, and they never arrested the guys. Like, what was up with that?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say the police in this town really don't get a lot of props for the way they were behaving at that time. But that, like, I don't know what they're doing there. They find the burnt orange Camaro. I had to say that again, Kevin. And instead of taping it off, collecting evidence, looking at the car, they're like, oh, they probably just ran off. The car goes to Marshall's house where it sits for a few days. Marshall looks through it and he's like, hey, look, there's a receipt from the burger place, so we know where they were. Oh, look, here's Sally's work uniform. And then like a few days later, the cops are like, yeah, I think, well, you can bring the car down because now we're going to process it. And I'm like, at this point, it is so contaminated. But, there's so many instances in this podcast where you hear the police doing things that you're just like, seriously? Like Sally's license, found on the floor. And they're like, oh, we don't know where that came from. Here's this license of this missing girl just found on the floor of the police department.
Someone turned in a gun and we don't have any records of that.
Yeah, the gun thing. I don't even want... The gun thing was like the most bonkers thing in this whole thing.
Yeah, Laura, I agree with you. The cops definitely let everybody down. But we won't let you down if you join us on Patreon.
No, we will not.
Go to Patreon. Thank you, Laura. I got a little applause there.
Yes, for your transition to the business section. Nice job, Kevin.
Yeah, if you go to patreon.com/partners in crime media, you get all sorts of great exclusive podcasts. We always have between 15 and 20 exclusive podcasts each month.
Wow.
On this week's after show, we're going to be going to Washington, D.C. with Laura Bricker.
A field trip.
Field trip. Let's find out all about her school vacation. She and Will went down. And did they go to all the places that Toby Ball used to drink?
Seems unlikely.
We'll find out in the after show. Don't spoil
Seems
it.
unlikely. Okay. Don't want to spoil it. Speaking of Toby Ball, he's got the Deep Dive Book Club podcast, and tomorrow night he's going to be recording the latest episode. The book is called Among the Bros. Toby, what is this book about?
It is crazy. It's about the KA fraternity at College of Charleston and how a couple of brothers there, one of whom was active, one of whom I think went and then dropped out, but sort of hung out. And they deal like insane amounts of Xanax. But it's a lot about like fraternity culture in general, fraternity culture at College of Charleston. It's a wild read. It's quick too. So it should be an interesting conversation. I mean, it's...
How many satanic cults are involved?
Well, they don't wear it on their sleeve, that's for sure. But the actions sometimes maybe indicate some of that nonsense.
That's going to be a great podcast to listen to. We also have Married with Podcasts, in which Rebecca and I dispense relationship advice, whether that's your spouse or your best friend or that person from high school who you want to get space from because they're a little toxic.
Yeah.
But they're also flaming everybody online, so you're a little afraid to back away.
That's right.
We'll tell you how we answered that question. And there's also Leave It to Bricker, in which Laura Bricker solves mysteries in her quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire. And she's like, well, satanic cults? No, but I did go to the Grange and found out all about the agricultural Illuminati.
And they told me they were not a cult, to be clear. And I said, that's kind of funny.
What would a cult say? If you're in a cult, we're going to go, well, of course we're a cult. That's why we're hiring you.
Yeah.
Jesus. We have 525 exclusive podcasts there at patreon.com/partners in crime media.
All right, Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now.
On this episode of Plant Killers, we'll explore one nation's most notorious fruit and vegetable killer, bad dirt. What makes bad dirt so bad? The answer? The ingredients. But fear not, true crime enthusiasts. This story has a happy ending. New Miracle Grow organic raised bed and garden soil. It's made with quality organic ingredients from upcycled green waste like compost and aged bark. Unlike the other guys who can't say the same. Looks like bad dirt's murdering days are over, thanks to Miracle Grow. Join us next time on Plant Killers.
So, Kevin, who is our next sponsor on this program?
We're sponsored by Quince.
Oh, Quince, yay! I just ordered something from Quince.
Yeah, okay, so the weather's getting warmer, and we're putting away, like, all those winter sweaters and the big jackets, and you know what you find out?
You need stuff.
You don't have anything really great for the warmer weather. So this is a great time to look into the great deals they have at Quince. They have premium European linen dresses, blouses, shorts from $30, washable silk tops, 14-karat gold jewelry, so much more. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Yep, I just ordered something from Quince. Literally, just did.
What did you get?
I have this cardigan that I have there in like this light blue color. It's this cotton and linen like boyfriend fit cardigan that I got last summer that I love so much. I just ordered a second one in camel because I wear it all the time. I love it so much, and I ordered a new one. I love it.
Okay, so I guess that's a personal endorsement?
It is. I love Quince. I love it so much.
Get warm, weather ready with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime. To get free shipping and 365-day returns, QUINCE.com/crime.
So, Toby, I see you have some notes about law enforcement in San Angelo, too. Do you think that they were doing a good and thorough job in investigating all of these cases?
While Kevin was doing the business section, I did Google San Angelo. How many people do you think live in San Angelo?
Between all the sexual cults and the Satanists.
Yeah, it's inclusive of all those people.
I'm 35,000 people.
I'm going to say 9,000 people.
Right now, it's 100,000.
Oh, wow.
They make this sound like the smallest town in the entire world.
Like back then, like even if it, maybe it was like 70,000, if it's grown quite a bit since then, but it's big.
Holy shit.
I mean, for it's New Hampshire big, at least.
Yeah, that's bigger than the population, by the way, of Greenland.
Greenland, New Hampshire? Greenland, New Hampshire's only got about 4,000 people.
Greenland, the country.
Yeah, no, it's big. Yeah, so the cops, it's a little hard to tell. I mean, they're kind of all over the place. And then there's like these weird little details come out about like finding Sally's driver's license on the floor of, I can't remember, it's the sheriff's or the police department, but it's just lying around. It's like, what's that doing there? They find case files in the trash right next to the shredder.
Nothing weird about that.
Yeah, it's something weird, especially when it has the notes from one of the detectives naming 3 other cops as being people he thinks were involved in the murder and also mentioning that he fears for his life. So it sounds like in addition to the town / as we now know, kind of a city being dysfunctional, it seems as though law enforcement's kind of dysfunctional. When cops are suspecting other cops of being involved in the murders of teenagers, it's weird.
Because cops don't suspect other cops for anything.
And by the way, when they suspect them so much that it's like an afterthought that he mentions as he's leaving an interview, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he just mentioned this as an afterthought as we were packing up for our interview. Oh, by the way.
You know what?
I think the other cops could be involved. Wait, what?
So it's like, even if they aren't, that in and of itself seems like a story that they're this fractured and have acted in a way that you think that it's possible they might have murdered 2 teenagers for whatever reason, perhaps for being snitches, I guess, but just another bleak detail in a bleak place.
Another like motif that recurs is this thing. People are like, oh, I don't want to say because I'm afraid of Johnny, or I'm afraid of Steve coming to get me, or I'm afraid of the devil, or whatever the hell. As somebody who wrote about a small town cold case where everybody knew who was involved, I recognize that whole thing with like the average person sort of living with a rational amount of fear about some dangerous person who's like now going to come and get you. Like their number 2 murder is going to be you, blabbermouth. Again, it's kind of like miss me with that. It's just like people think they're way more important than they are. And I think they're probably, are they really more afraid of like a middle-aged spree killer who hasn't killed anybody in decades, or are they just more afraid of like everybody in town thinking they're a blabbermouth?
People don't like to get involved. They don't, especially if they think the police are involved. I mean, I've done my deep rabbit hole dive now into the Karen Reed case, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And the big question I'm having with a reporter that I'm talking about it with right now is like, how come no one inside the house and none of those cops inside the house, no one inside the house is talking? I'm like, dude, you watch Trial 4? Those 3 cops who murdered that other cop didn't talk about it forever. And then they were put in charge of the investigation of his murder, for fuck's sakes. Like, people don't talk.
But they did with their crazy rumors in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite one, which was Marshall's cousin's wife's friend's daughter, heard a guy was there when someone else named Spider shot Jane and Sally. And they said, Spider has lots of tattoos, child porn and tattoos. I'm like, okay. And
that narrowed it down. Yeah.
You have to admit, Laura, though, that some of the people they talk to in this podcast, some of the suspects are violent as hell, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Gilbraith is weird, and I actually think probably, a lot more hinky than sort of even the podcast is able to dig up. But they talk to some bad people in this podcast who, of course, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not as bad as people are portraying me to be. I'm fine. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then when you hear the things that they were arrested for, when you hear about stuff that other people said they did, I want to tell that woman Trinity, who's dating Heath, the guy who kept 12-year-olds prisoner in his trailer, like, run, Trinity, run. Like, these people are scary.
Oh yeah, no, it's super scary. And you go through all of them and you're like, okay, so you've got John Gilbreth, he's like a bizarre character right off the bat. I mean, he's dangerous, but also he's one of these like citizen sleuth people, which always sort of makes you wonder, like, why is he involved? It's like when arsonists go and like watch the fires that they've started so they can get aroused or whatever. So you've got this guy who volunteers to help out. He reaches out to Shane's father, Marshall, and Sally's parents, offering to help. But then he's got drug and gun charges. He's got a past record. He's just got weird shit at his house, like fingernails, hair, cassette tapes, and notes, which look like something out of a serial killer documentary. But then those are not a match.
But where's his skin suit? I mean, really, if he doesn't have a skin suit.
He's got to up his game. I'm sorry. And then Steve, who, by the way, they found, there was definitely some great journalism in terms of like shoe leather reporting and getting out there and finding these people. So you've got Steve, who people in the neighborhood are like, he's like the devil. He's like killing cats. He's got snakes in the bathroom. Like, I was like, there was no fucking way I would be going in that guy's bathroom.
Yeah.
But they go right up and knock on his door. And it's just like, there was so much going on with all of these people that it just felt like, how can you hone in on what within this group of scary, sketchy people is credible and actually could be related to what happened to these teenagers? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was an obstacle for me in sort of keeping track of what was going on narratively, Laura. For me, I very much appreciate sort of the end of episode 3. They had a very explicit recap of like what we know and what's important.
First, we know Shane and Sally were mixed up with a group of kids that they were trying to leave behind. According to Marshall, one of these guys, Steve Schaefer, was covered in bruises when Marshall came to ask him about Shane. Someone also gave Sally a gun to get rid of, which left her worried enough to call the cops. And Shane owed money to someone.
I thought it was very much needed because this is a little dense, especially with all these different twists and turns. It recharged my interest in the case and reoriented me, and I felt like they could have used that kind of explicit technique, that explicit signposting in more places along the way, because it does kind of go and like hit, different notes, and it can sometimes be difficult to keep track of who's who.
So, Toby, I'm still stuck on this being a town of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Here's why.
Okay.
They track down Steve, right? They're sending him letters. They're trying to like talk to him. This suspect, this main suspect in the case. They're tracking him down, sending him letters. His mother keeps saying he's not home. His fucking next door neighbor is the daughter of the main witness in the case, the dude in the boat who saw the kids on the shore that night arguing with somebody who had a truck with those big lights on it. This is a town of 100,000 people, and like she's friends with one of the main suspects in the case. How is this possible, Toby?
Well, I mean, it's probably neighborhoods, right?
But he's moved
people
around.
People who know each other went to the same high school who, presumably have a bunch of high schools, and they're all from the same part of town. So it just happens to be a coincidence that they live next to each other. But it's not like you just like randomly throw tags or whatever. It's like, oh, these two people happen to live next to each other. It's like you're already kind of narrowing it down just because they know each other and they're from the same basic geographical area. Yeah, I don't have much to comment about like how big it is other than just reading you what I read on Wikipedia. I've got some other facts though.
Like what?
All right.
In 1632, a short-lived mission of Franciscans under Spanish auspices, which is a word they use, was founded in the area to serve native people.
Serve, yeah.
Yeah, they did a lot of service for those native peoples.
Yeah.
Is there anything else they're famous for
like
besides
fruitcakes or anything?
Like
that?
Are they like the home of something interesting?
Yeah.
It's home to Angelo State University, historic Fort Concho, and Goodfellow Air Force Base. This is not that surprising. It is the seat of the Roman Catholic Diocese of San Angelo.
Wow. Oh. Well, I'll tell you what, university, no offense to the students who go there, I will not be ordering some of that campus gear anytime soon.
Oh, really?
Some bad juju.
Just wait until Christmas.
Oh, no.
They say plants like music. Yeah, no, like really, they respond to the vibrations of it, which means that this playlist you're listening to, the plants are too. You know what else plants like? Organic soil from Miracle Grow. It's made with all the best stuff like wood fiber and compost. Plus, it's OMRI certified organic, which officially means it's made with superior ingredients. And when you give your plants the stuff that makes them happy, they won't judge you on your iffy playlist. Hear that, plants? So go ahead and give them Miracle Grow.
Did you know that more than 113,000 children are waiting to be adopted from foster care? Ellie was one of them. When she was placed in foster care at 16 after experiencing significant abuse, she felt unlovable. Thankfully, Ellie was adopted with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. Today, she's planning on college and has a bright future. But more than 20,000 teens age out of care every year. You can help. Visit davethomasfoundation.org/learn more.
Emmy award-winning John Mulaney presents Everybody's in L.A., a special run of 6 live episodes created by and starring Mulaney that'll stream live on Netflix during the Netflix is a Joke Fest. The comically unconventional show will feature special guests where John Mulaney explores the city of Los Angeles during a week when every funny person is in it. Watch John Mulaney Presents Everybody's in L.A., debuting May 3rd live at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they be checking out Shane and Sally from the Texas Monthly, Larbrick, or what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this podcast?
So I'm going mild thumbs up with this podcast. And here's why. The Texas Monthly, they're so great with crime reporting. If you read their narrative nonfiction crime articles, they're gripping, they're very well researched. Like, this is what they're known for. What I struggled with in this podcast was it was so dense and so complex. And there was so much information that I just couldn't consume it all. It was hard for me to follow because there was such a large cast of characters, and the way that it was organized, it wasn't organized like chapter 1, one topic, chapter 2, another topic. It kept coming back to things, and they kept like commingling. And really the only way I could kind of make sense of what was happening was to go to their website and like see it written. Oh, okay, that's who this person is. So there's like great reporting here. You've got all the information. They've done a tremendous amount of work. But for me, it was just, I'm going mild thumbs up because it was organized in such a way that it was at times very hard for me to keep up with who was who.
Toya Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Shane and Sally?
Before I get to that, if you listen to the whole review, you'll find that I've thrown out some facts about San Angelo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux, the 4-time Cy Young Award-winning baseball pitcher and Hall of Fame inductee, was born in San Angelo. It doesn't say whether he grew up there.
Wow. I wonder what his feelings are on Satan.
He never played for the Devil Rays, I'll tell you that.
Well, there you go. Frank Bring Him Back Alive Buck lived in San Angelo in the 40s and 50s. These are just two of many, many notable people, according to this list. Do they have alibis? Yeah. Oh, Akash Vukoti, who is a spelling prodigy and TV personality.
Oh.
So there you go.
So thumbs up for Toby.
By the way, we're going to get emails people from this town being like, our town is beautiful. Shut the fuck up, guys.
I know. Maybe things have really turned around since 1988. So look, I actually really like this. And if you're really like hung up on having a solution at the end, which is like, oh, okay, well, that's what happened, and you can go away happy, like that's not going to happen. But if you want to, it's kind of like a story about this town in this one event, and then all the things that kind of flow out of it, like looking into the murder of these two kids, like what do you kind of learn about their environs and the people who are around and what was happening in that town at that time. And that stuff I thought was really, really interesting. It is dense. Sometimes, like, I can't show you because it's on a podcast, but I've got like 3.5 legal pages of notes, and I didn't even have this for 2 of the episodes. So there's like a lot of information. But again, I thought it was really interesting. I was psyched to listen to each episode. So I give it a pretty solid thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm going to go a mild thumbs up. This is better than average podcast. I think it's the best of the Texas Monthly True Crime podcast that have been out there. We do get to follow along on this investigative journalism, but the investigation is ultimately frustrating, so it makes the narrative a bit frustrating. I think the problem might be that the Texas Monthly takes such big swings with their podcasts. So if they connect, it's going to be a grand slam, but instead they're just kind of putting the ball in play here. And that ambiguity works well in a very thoughtful magazine piece, but it's a bit disappointing in a podcast. All that said, I think that there's a lot of good stuff here. It's pretty thought-provoking. And, I think everybody's going to come away with perhaps a different answer as to what happened in this unsolved mystery.
Yeah, I'm going thumbs up too. I will say, the sort of downside of this podcast and its denseness has to do with print reporters writing for audio. I just heard that over and over and over again, and sort of the assumption that there are things that you remember because I said them, right? I would encourage, if you haven't listened, and maybe the people who made this podcast, if they have not yet listened to Beyond All Repair, listen to it. It is the best example of an incredibly complicated story told in such a way that like you absolutely know what the hell is going on all the time. Like it is so detailed, and there are so many twists and turns, and there are so many people, and there are so many like timelines, and there are so many like different moments that if not in the right hands, you would have no idea what the hell was going on or who was who or like why you care or anything. And this story suffered a little bit from some of that because it didn't have the crispness and clearness that audio writing needs to have to sort of keep the ear of the person listening like really, really oriented. That being said, I really liked the podcast. I loved the sound of it. I loved the 2-host format of this. I always say that do it when it makes sense, and it totally makes sense. The showing of the shoe leather really, really worked in this for me. And, the soundscape in this is great. The music is great. The mixing is really, really good. And I think that the sound of the podcast and the presentation of the podcast and the bleakness of this place really is up to the standard, I think, of Texas Monthly reporting. So yeah, thumbs up for me, for Shane and Sally. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week! Police have charged a priest in Pottstown, Pennsylvania with online improprieties. No, not the kind you might be thinking of. They say he stole from the church coffers and spent it on Candy Crush. CBS reports Father Lawrence Kozak dipped into the collection plate to pay for App Store transactions on mobile games like Mario Kart, Cash Frenzy, and Willy Wonka's Vegas casino slots. Investigators say he dropped $214,000 on in-game credits and rewards, and $44,000 was charged to the St. Thomas More Parish credit card. In case you're wondering, no, this priest is not a 12-year-old, and no, none of the games he blew 6 figures on pay out any cash, just more rewards like power-ups and additional lives. Court records show Kozak had been discreetly paying the church back, having put $10,000 toward his debt, but it's not enough to cover his daily bread. So panel, now that he's confessed his online sins, the priest must do an act of contrition. What digital deed should this priest do as penance? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
I think he needs to do a series of videos on the TikTok to warn young people about the dangers of Candy Crush.
Toby Ball, what digital deed do you think this priest should do as penance?
Reddit moderator on a true crime podcast board.
That's penance, yeah.
What do you think, Kevin?
I think you should take all that candy from Candy Crush and turn it into communion wafers.
Oh,
it's called transubstantiation, bitches! Catholic school, son!
All right. Laura Bricker, if folks want to follow you online and see all of your Exeter adventures, how can they find you there?
At Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
Toby Ball, folks want to follow you and learn more fun facts about San Angelo, Texas. How can they find you there?
I got a lot of them at Toby Ball NH.
Kevin Flynn, what about you? How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn, and the P stands for pagan.
If you want to follow me everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere else, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere, Crime Writers On, but mostly what you should be doing is joining our amazing Facebook discussion group. Just go to Facebook, find us. There's a pinned post on our page telling you how to join the group. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. You'll get the Crime Writers On after show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the magnificent Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this program is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, The Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where we've also painted all the walls black for our quasi-satanic rituals. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I'm celebrating the pagan holiday of Beltane at 5:30.
with those occultists from Texas?
Murphy works at this kind of cool store in Portsmouth that's sort of pagan adjacent. It sells like tarot cards and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh my.
so
Oh my.
they and one of their friends and I are going to celebrate Beltane with a fire outside and pagan foods.
What are pagan foods?
So Murphy made homemade soda bread.
Ground from the bones of a sinner.
Yes, some kind of chicken stew business. And then chocolate bread pudding. I don't know if that's actually pagan or not. It should be. And then you're supposed to burn something that you're
hopefully not the chicken.
Turning the leaf on, you know, turning to a new page on.
Maybe I'll do that.
So I've got all these like tax and bill documents that we have to shred or burn anyway. So I'm going to do those.
Perfect. Get those out of the way.
Burn some stuff.
Partners in Crime Media. Emmy Award-winning John Mulaney presents Everybody's in L.A., a special run of 6 live episodes created by and starring Mulaney that'll stream live on Netflix during the Netflix is a Joke Fest. The comically unconventional show will feature special guests where John Mulaney explores the city of Los Angeles during a week when every funny person is in it. Watch John Mulaney Presents Everybody's in L.A., debuting May 3rd live at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix.